Well, hello, Buffalo. All right. I'm Stacey Watson, and I am here today to talk about dropouts. Because how many of us hear about dropout prevention? Like, we can raise our hands. I'm a teacher. All right, we all hear about dropout prevention, but what we don't hear about is what happens to those dropouts. Where do they go? 7,000 students drop out each and every day in the United States of America. Are they your students? Are they your children? Yes, they are all of our children. So as we stand here and we talk about solutions to major problems, both in America and internationally, we have to start adding up some numbers and thinking about the effect that our lack of attention to those dropouts is going to have on us moving forward in any way. In the state of New York alone, 38,000 students drop out every year. And those numbers are based on seniors dropping out. That doesn't include the sophomores, the juniors, and even the freshmen that elect to leave school. So when we look at a 50% dropout rate, how can we say it's their fault? Because what is the next step when somebody drops out? Jail. The streets. I mean, we hear about our superstars that might end up making it once in a while. Yet we don't hear about those 7,000 children. So although I am a purely accidental educator, and I mean that, I studied poems. When I moved to the city of Buffalo and realized that no one is addressing the actual dropouts, and that millions and millions and millions of dollars are going into dropout prevention, which clearly is not working, I decided it was not fair, I would not sit by and watch it, and our children, all of our children, deserve our attention. So 10 years ago, we started working on this curriculum, and it really was by accident. I started teaching a GED class. I used that poem writing to engage them. We listened to music, we wrote about it. And suddenly I realized there was something happening, something magical. So an actual educator came up to me and said, "What is it that you're doing anyway?" And I said, "I don't really know. I don't know, we read stuff. We talk about stuff. We write about stuff. We listen to music, we watch movies. We do yoga." Yes, yoga. And she said, "You need to get this on paper." So since I'm like, woo, all over the place, she helped me get it on paper. And she just helped me pick through what was happening in my brain and what was happening with my students that has now led to the leading graduation rate in the state of New York for dropouts. So, and these are my children. One of the things that Drop-In Nation understands is that, one, dropout prevention does not work without dropout recovery. If you have a child who is 16 years old and the parents may be absent because of work or other familial issues, and that child has a younger sibling that is 15, and because most of my students are male, I will refer to in the male, I have some awesome young ladies, that if an older brother is the only person that this 15-year-old will really listen to, and then the older brother gets a reputation at school, and then the older brother says, "You know what, I'm just gonna go out with my friends." Where is the little brother going? Same place. Same exact place. And I don't care if we put $1 million into that child alone. The more important thing to that child is his familial tie. So somewhere along the line, there needs to come a time where we just stop being afraid to tell the truth and say, yes, America, our education system needs to change, reform, all this stuff. We don't have time to sit around and legislate and talk. Our children are dying. Our children are going to jail. 88% of the children that leave the juvenile justice system leave without a GED or high school education. Where are they going to go then? So when we developed Drop-In Nation, I thought about what I needed, because one of the things that I am really excited, and I hope one of my high school teachers is watching today, because I missed 78 days of my senior year in high school. I moved out on my own when I was 17, and the only thing that got me through was the fact that once upon a time I had been told by my mother that I could do anything. So that innate self-esteem, that even though it kind of got kicked around in the process, that innate self-esteem was what saved me. And then when I went to college, kind of because I didn't have anywhere else to go, a teacher saved me, Dr. Rita Riddle. She looked at me and she said, "You have something, kid." And I was like, "Really?" Because all I thought I had was now a meal plan and a roof over my head. She said, "No, you've got something special." That was all it took. So when we developed Drop-In Nation curriculum nearly a decade ago, it started out with self-esteem, believing in the children honestly and teaching them how to believe in themselves. Then we focused on self-awareness. Who are you as a human being? What do you want to do with your life? Do you want to sit behind a desk? Do you need to be out? I mean, I certainly can't be locked into a 9-to-5. Can you imagine trying to contain me in a cubicle? Feel bad for that boss. Do you want to work for yourself? Do you want to do hands-on things? You know, do you want to work overnight so you can hang out during the day? What is it that you want innately as a human being? And then we focus on the core connection, which is built upon relationships. And you know, when you look at this, you go, "Wow, that's really not rocket science." And no, it's not rocket science or any other kind of science. It's humanity. So we look at this and we say familial connection. Well, at the time that I ended up in college, because I didn't have anywhere else to go, and Dr. Riddle took the time, her license plate said Dr. Mama. I went to school in the South. And she said, "Dr. Mama." And she was a Shakespeare professor with a Kentucky accent. And she was like, "I am not going to let you get away." So she provided for me at college that sort of familial bind that I needed just to continue to believe in me. So when we founded Drop-In Nation and looked at this curriculum, I said, let's have an intellectual family. An intellectual family. An intellectual family is one that is built on very real foundations of clinical family research, one that is built upon unconditional love, a lack of judgment, and most importantly, food. We eat together a lot. So I decided, okay, well, we're going to build this intellectual family, and how am I going to do that? I'm going to have thanks-taking. Yes, thanks-taking, because it opens the door for a really great lesson on the history of our country. And so my first year, I had 40 students. Now, I'm serving anywhere between 60 and 100 students, and the staff does all of the cooking. We set up tables, we sit around the table, and we just let it evolve like any other family dinner. And I'm usually like the crazy uncle. So, familial connection, and then financial reality. Because I'll tell you about my students. My students live in right here, right now. My students live in, am I going to make it to tomorrow? Is my family going to eat? I mean, we hear about these problems. We know they exist. They are real. And so we started talking about finances. And that, yes, there is a class system in this country. And yes, you can navigate it. But if you cannot read or think, you can navigate nothing. Then social and community awareness. Being responsible for yourself in your community. Being responsible for your street, for your block, for your neighborhood. Taking care of your friend's little sister if you see she's walking home late at night. volunteering to help others even though you may feel like you don't have anything left inside of you, becoming one with where you live. And then finally, we creep around to education. Because when we're talking about recovering dropouts, we are talking about recovering 16 to 25-year-old young men and women who have survived with literally nothing. And they have done this because they have a breadth of thinking that goes way beyond any college diploma. So when you get to the traditional education, it really, even if they're reading at a 3rd grade level, if you can make it matter and relevant, they respond. And then fractions don't seem so hard. Trigonometry is just something else we have to do. Learning to put your comma in the right place is like, psh, I've survived a lot more than this comma. So how did I found this? Like I said, I was an education major, or an English major, and had no education background. And so when my traditional education mentor came to me and said, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I don't know, stories." And then I really started to look at those stories. And I realized that I might have at least this much of the answer as to why our education system, no matter how much we keep trying to revamp it, is simply not catching with our current youth. And it comes down to storytelling. In America, we are focused very much on a Eurocentric frame of mind in regard to our education system. It's very linear. You go to preschool, elementary school, middle school, high school. If you're lucky, you go to college. If you're really lucky, you go to grad school. And in that, we just follow a straight line. And as long as we can follow straight lines, we're okay. But for those of us who cannot, where's our education? So we look at the traditional storytelling method. Traditional storytelling is the same sort of line, and that is in the written tradition. In the written tradition of storytelling, you have rising action, climax, denouement. Just flatten that climax a little bit, and there's your straight line. But when you look at cultures that have been traditionally left out of the education system, whether you're looking at women, African American, Native American, I mean really any culture that isn't really right in that Eurocentric way of thinking, those cultures are built on oral storytelling. So when we tell a story, you don't start a story and just go from the beginning and get to the middle and go to the end, ha ha ha. No, you start with the story. This is what I'm talking about. And then everything else you say weaves back into that central point. So we look at then college level reasoning. College level reasoning, so we go through our straight line, and then we get to college, and we take a theory class or two, we take classes that start to strain our brain a little bit, and then our brain starts to go like this. And we realize that there's a lot more out there, and a lot more ways to think about it than we ever believed. And then those of us that are fortunate enough to go to grad school, we go to grad school and they rock our brain. They rock our brain with theory, and they rock our brain with formulas, and they rock our brain with how are you going to change the world, because those that go to graduate school are the ones that are expected to change the world. And so you learn this form of circular reasoning that is really very similar to oral storytelling. So if you look at the type of reasoning we're doing in storytelling, this is what I built Drop-In Nation around. The main point. And the main point for my students is that they survive and that someone loves them. It's the main point. Everything else just weaves into that central point. So when we think about this, and then we look at my students who come up in an oral tradition of storytelling, and then we try to force them into a straight line and it doesn't work, and we all throw our hands up and we say, oh my gosh, what are we going to do with all these kids? And then we say, wait a second, what if we just matched the education to the way that the kids' brains work? What if we just start making education more circular, more holistic, more focused on one central point, and everything leads into that? What happens then? And I wasn't really sure if I was going to read any of this today or none of this, but I carry around my students with me all the time somewhere. And so I want to read just a selection from an essay that one of my young men wrote. This young man is 19 years old. He's in the city of Buffalo right now. He left school in 10th grade. He has a 3rd grade reading level. He had never written an essay in his entire life, and he made it to 10th grade. How does that happen? But I know that this child was meant to be with me, so I want to read this. And this is his interpretation of school, and I'm going to say I am pro-teacher all the way. I love teachers. But this was his interpretation. The people, well, teachers and staff, just mean. They don't care about the kids, they care about getting paid. Which, then I had to explain that teachers really don't get paid like that. So, excuse my spelling. They have no love for us. They don't want nothing for us or see nothing in us. They don't see nothing in us. They never bond with us to see what we need. Well, this might sound bad, but that's what we needed, them to bond with us. I didn't find that out until I met my GED teacher, and she binds with all of us. She understands what we need, what part we need to help around, and besides, she pushes us, makes us work. She does what she needs to do to make you see how much you need school for you and the others that look up to you. And yes, she will kick, which is really cute because he put it in parentheses, if you don't show up. I never wrote this long in my life, so now I see it's really not that bad. I knew it was a reason she made me write this. That's crazy, and I still want to write. Wow, let me stop here. Can't forget to thank her, even though I got a ways to go. That I see now I want this for me, and have her be proud of me. Oh my God, I'm going to make myself stop now because I really want to keep going. Thank you, Miss Q. That's what it's about. So then, I'm really dorky. I really do carry this stuff around with me all the place. So then we look at the major informers of Drop-In Nation, and the first is this holistic education model, which we looked at earlier. The second is understanding our children are complex. There is no one answer that is going to serve every child. They're humans. We wouldn't want them to be all the same. That would be creepy and like Pink Floyd. Okay. Then we think about this W.E.B. Du Bois theory of double consciousness, which if I talk about, I'm going way over 18 minutes. But the idea of having two brains, existing as one, is who you're supposed to be as an American, and two, who you really might be. Then the idea of the theory of cultural industrialization, relevance to life, flexibility, focus on reading and thinking, and love. Because without that, none of this matters. Our education system is broken. It's broken. And God bless all of the educators that are out there working every day to save our children. However, someone needs to be worried about where they go. Somebody needs to care about what happens when a child walks out of school at 17 years old with no self-esteem and ends up on the streets. Without that, everything we're doing is for naught, because they are our family.